Welcome back to the Enricher Business Circle, the podcast for leaders who know that in the digital world, if you're not visible, then you really don't exist. I am your host, Rickdrieka Bennett, and today we're going to go in the world of search, um, which is one of the biggest revolving doors since the birth of Google. AI is changing everything about how people find information. And for businesses, that means that sometimes the old rules of SEO may be rewritten. My guest today is an expert for the new world. He's a thought leader in AI search and SEO, known for translating complex jargon into clear, common language and common commercially focused strategies. With over 15 years of experience of driving measurable growth in a brutal hospitality sector, welcome to the podcast, Adam Hamadache.
Thanks, Rickdrieka. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us on today, Adam. So, Adam, part of what we do with the Enricher Business Circle is we always start with the why or the background story of how everything got started. So, could you tell us how you got started with SEO and marketing, and
Yeah.
how has the world of AI search kind of shaped your approach?
Yeah, sure. Uh, I started my first business when I was 25 years old, and I had lots of experience working with hotels. And so in my former life in other agencies, so I started up an agency working, actually creating newspaper promotions. Probably showing my age now. So what we used to do is we used to work with national newspapers here in the UK and create hotel offers. And it was a wonderful model. But then unfortunately, this little business called booking.com came along and started taking up and digitizing everything. So that sadly, that business was quite short lived. So I kind of found myself in a position where I had all of these hotel contacts. I knew what they needed. They needed to not be spending 18-20% with booking.com. But they really didn't have an understanding of marketing generally. So, we started out to really small, just me doing email campaigns for B&Bs. And then we kind of grew from there. We haven't always, so Formula is my digital growth agency. We haven't always done SEO. It's only been something that we've added in the last sort of 7 or 8 years. And that's because, first of all, I didn't really have an understanding of it previously when I started out. But it became increasingly important that any business, regardless of sector, needs to maximize their own visibility, because that, everything in marketing starts with awareness. So we started to, really learn about this. We started to incorporate it within our business. And then, that was great for a time, and, represents probably about 85% of our revenue right now, doing some sort of SEO work for clients. But in the last 2 years, everything's being kind of tipped on its head. AI search is evolving at such a ridiculous pace. And I think, we're trying to help our clients navigate this very changing search environment. So, it's really exciting times to be in this sector for sure.
Definitely, and I would definitely agree that AI has changed SEO a lot. How we traditionally do SEO, that's not the case anymore. Fully with AI because of the geo tracking search that's embedded in there, and then how a lot of times they're even embedding AI in like ad campaigns, so it kind of changes and alters how keywords are being used as well. So
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you on that. I've had a lot of experiences of the bad side of AI as it relates to SEO
Yeah.
and ads for the past 45 days for people who don't listen to me. And then they would come for me to clean up the mess. So I definitely understand. So could you tell us more about your take on SEO and AI search? Like for someone who needs to be more aware of it, what are some things that you feel that they need to be paying attention to around AI and SEO?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say probably the first thing that comes to mind is It is predicted, not just by me, but big companies, SEMrush, McKinsey, Gartner,
Mhm.
all predicting that AI search will surpass traditional search
Mhm.
by 2028. So we've got more, give or take, a couple of years before things really kind of tip over to AI search being the dominant searching feature. And I think that's important for a number of reasons. First and foremost, if you are any sort of business that wants to get found on the internet, generally speaking, customers start searching on a search engine, and that is now becoming increasingly one of the AI platforms, whether it be ChatGPT, Google's AI mode, Perplexity, or name any others. They're all being utilized in such uh, in very different ways to traditional search. And I was even watching, this is being recorded just at the time when Stranger Things has just been released here in the UK on Netflix, and I paused it. And I don't know if you've seen the program, but I'm obsessed. It's incredible. But I paused it, and there was an ad that came up on Netflix that advertising customers to, it's all very Stranger Things based, but it was all about their current strapline, which is search like never before. Google is encouraging us as customers, as users of the internet, to engage in a much more conversational search rather
Mhm.
than, in my world, we work predominantly with hotels. You might search for hotels in New York, last year. Now you're asking, you're jumping into Google's AI mode or ChatGPT, and you're saying, I'm thinking about going to New York. I'm looking for a nice romantic stay, maybe close to Central Park. Really want it to have a rooftop bar. The complexity of the search that we're being encouraged to, or the prompt, should we say, that we're being encouraged to put into these engines is so much more intent based, specific, and contextual. And that,
Mhm.
I think, is the biggest change. And I'd say, just to add to that, another big factor that's happening in this space is ChatGPT's weekly active users. The latest we've got, and I've sort of got Google alerts set up for all manner of different things, so I keep abreast of these things. But the latest figure says that there are 800 million weekly active users on the platform, and that's coming to the end of 2025. In February 2025, that was like 400 million. So
Right.
it's doubled in a matter of what, 6-7 months. So the speed of adoption is just means that people just can't ignore it. And I think, this is why we're really passionate about, just how big this change is. And I think, you have to sort of pay attention to it.
And I definitely have to agree with you. And I remember it was maybe 2 months ago. I was at this thing for LinkedIn, and they were talking about how in 2026, one of the requirements that employers are going to require their
Mm,
employees to do is be able to prompt AI for
yeah.
business, which is that making sure you know how to prompt AI the right way to search certain things. And I also noticed that, like, in October, with the Google Ads AI, it will go in and actually, if you have a low budget, it will reduce your keywords to one word keywords instead of long tail keywords. And
Okay.
I thought that was crazy because no one searches for one word keywords anymore because of
Yeah.
how AI is changing. So with that, you see like the change in even campaigns being taken over by AI as well. So that, I think this is going to allow me to kind of segue to my next question. So for business
Okay.
owners or marketing leaders who eyes are glazing over terms like AI reviews, what is one thing that absolutely needs to be understood about how how AI is even changing like the review nature of things, because AI is able to know who has the most reviews on their websites and things like that, or even leveraging blog posts to get more links on backlinks on the internet. What is your take on that?
So what do you mean in terms of how is the impact of your online reputation changing? Is that what you mean in terms of reviews?
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'd say, your online reputation, whether that be Google reviews or TripAdvisor or, whatever platform, those things have always been so important for customers, and I believe will continue to be so.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, customers can discern whether or not they take the negative stuff to heart or with a pinch of salt. So, if a hotel has 4.6 stars and they've got a handful of terrible reviews, but overwhelmingly positive reviews, that's great. You think, okay, well, that looks good. That looks like a good fit for me. I think what's happening now in the way that these AI platforms can pass through the data, it just means that there is the sentiment of negativity can be easily summarized and presented back to the customer long before they've even been to your website. So in that regard, kind of every negative review is almost working against you like never before, but equally every positive review is working more powerfully for you too. The weighting, I think probably the big shift here is that if I keep with the hotel example because I think it's something that everyone can understand. If you search for hotels, on traditional Google, what you tend to get is a whole load of ads. You get the Google Hotel Pack, which is kind of the map feature, which traditionally features about 3 hotels. And you'll see ratings, you'll see rates, and you'll see address, etc. All sort of nicely illustrated on that map feature. Often the 3 hotels that are featured within that hotel pack, which is prime real estate, digital real estate for on Google's page 1, won't necessarily always be the highest ranked hotel. The ranking has a factor. You're unlikely to see anything less than 3 stars on there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you're the best ranked on Google or TripAdvisor that you're going to feature in that hotel pack. So the online reputation that a business has has influence, but it's not been as weighty as perhaps it is now with AI, because AI is when you prompt an AI platform and you say, hey, I'm looking for this type of business, what can you suggest? The online reputation has a much sort of more significant impact on whether or not you get recommended. And so now getting really, really solid in terms of your positive reviews across multiple platforms is, I would argue, more important than it ever has been in the history of the internet, which sounds a bit hyperbolic and dramatic. But I think it really is because of that weight that the AI platforms are kind of giving to these online review platforms. Does that make sense?
It does. And it kind of wants me to ask this question because I've been doing SEO for a while. And, SEO is more than just your meta description because you have front end and back end SEO. And I know like a lot of people are some people are just using Google reviews, but then some people are actually putting the reviews on more so on their websites. So with that, and Google actually searching and AI being able to crawl your website now with Google, do you think that traditional SEO is dying, or is it going to evolve since you can still get reviews from actually your website versus just like Google or Facebook and things like that?
Yeah, so I think for sure it's evolving. It's not dying. If you consider that, if we look at that example that you gave, which is a great one, having reviews on your website is still only going to be a positive. It's really important to have a really solid online reputation across the internet, whatever platforms or channels are relevant for your business. But in terms of having those reviews on your website, yes, you can have them, but I would say more important is to make sure that they are marked up. So there is such a thing called schema markup, which in very kind of layman's terms is kind of a way of coding your website in the back end in a way that could be easily read by search engines, but also by AI platforms. And why I think this evolving piece is so true, rather than, SEO is dead, we need to completely rewrite the rule book of SEO. Schema markup has been around for donkey's years. We've all known about it in the SEO world, and it's an important part of what we do on page or in the back end, shall we say. Strictly speaking, it's technical SEO that we're talking about. But now the way that the AI platforms are reviewing content, they do it in a slightly different way than the traditional Google algorithm. And so that schema markup on things like reviews on your website is more important now. Again, it's one of those things that carries a little bit more weight. So it's almost like the if you consider of all the 300 things that one could do on SEO to get greater visibility, the emergence of AI has just meant that there's a whole load of those 300 dials that you could turn that just push the volume a little bit louder than perhaps they used to. And I think that's the way to consider it, rather than, oh, everything's dead, we need to change everything. Actually, no, it's just the weighting has actually been shifted slightly.
Awesome. I definitely agree with you on that. And a lot of people are not leveraging organic marketing and leveraging SEO. And I've been raving on this soapbox, like you need to have SEO in place for years. And now there are so many platforms who are trying to build in SEO, but it's not really true SEO. It's just like, for example, GoDaddy, you put a description of the page and then they're classifying it as SEO. And that's your description for every single page, which is not going to benefit you at all.
No.
so, so I've definitely been telling people, like, you pay for what you get. So make sure you're investing in the right things when it comes to SEO. So I guess my next question for you would be, what is one of the concrete actionable strategies that a business can implement like this quarter if they're trying to adopt this AI powered search landscape?
So I would say that the first thing you have to do is do a full and detailed site audit. So this has traditionally been looked at in that would be classified as a technical SEO. So you do a sort of a site audit, and you get if you're unfamiliar, you'll get a whole load of jargon and nonsense back, and you'll see a whole load of stuff that you probably won't understand. But that's okay. You need to sort of know where you start. And what that should do is it will give you a whole load of errors and warnings and notices generally on stuff that is impacting your digital visibility. I like to call these visibility anchors. They're kind of anchoring your site down from getting the level of visibility that you perhaps ought to or deserve. So I think that would be the first thing. The second thing would be to prioritize those based around what it is that is going to give you the biggest impact. And this is something that we've developed in ScorePlan. So ScorePlan's a new software product that we've just launched. And it was really kind of to help customers, better navigate the world of AI search and SEO, because there's so much noise out there. What do you actually have to do? So that's why I think, when you jump into ScorePlan or any other site audit tool, you will get that sort of very clear, actionable list of stuff that you need to fix. The technical stuff, you might not have the expertise to do yourself, but that stuff you should start with, because that's always that generally offers the quick wins. I would then also be looking at, maximizing your online reputation. So perhaps working with a reputation management tool. We've developed one ourselves that we use really only for clients, and it basically keeps bad reviews off TripAdvisor, encourages customers to leave a review, and then pushes good stuff and hides bad stuff. So that can really help. And I also think that just having a constant watchful eye over what AI is actually saying about you. So we like to refer to this as your AI shadow. It's almost like your interpretation of your brand. It's basically what AI is saying about you before people even ever get to your website. And it's kind of becoming the new gatekeeper. It used to be about, how much money you wanted to spend on ads, or it used to be about, how good your SEO was, and therefore how high up the rankings you could get. Now it's about whether or not your brand is one of the typically 4 or 5 that tools like ChatGPT are recommending, but importantly, making sure that what it says about you is favorable. Because the quickest way to do this is type your business in, give me the pros and cons of working with X, and it will tell you, warts and all, everything that it's found on the internet about your business. And sometimes that's a bit of a shock, because this is the stuff that people are going to be searching for. And obviously, depending on the type of business you are, but if you're a service-based business like us, people would have done their homework. They would have seen some videos. They would have, maybe joined webinars, and then only then to say, okay, I'm thinking about, engaging with this company. Tell me the pros and cons, And so I think that will give you a sort of a real summary of where your business is, and what things you need to improve as a sort of an actionable checklist.
I agree. And then I know like there has been like this buzzing acronym that's going around called EAT, saying experience, expertise, authoritative, and trustworthiness. What are you thinking about that? Do you think that's going to be like the new cornerstone of SEO, or is it just going to stay like something buzzing for a while?
No, it's certainly not buzzing for a while. The reason being is that Google have been very, very clear in their work over the last probably couple of years, that the EEAT framework, as you rightly describe, is the framework for what constitute content as quality or not quality.
Right.
And Google's algorithm updates over the last couple of years have been really quite dramatic, in the sense that if we go back to March 2024, that was one of the first big shifts. In that update, it was a core update. I believe the New York Times lost 8% visibility. BBC News here in the UK lost 37% visibility overnight. And what it was doing, I almost liken this to like a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. It was trying to get rid of all the poor quality content that has surfaced on the internet with the advent of generative AI. And what it actually ended up doing was reducing the visibility of highly authoritative websites, whether that be publishers like the New York Times, or brands that are just trying to sell their services and their goods. So that was a big shift. There was a correction, and things sort of settled down for a little bit. But really, after this big core update, and there's been a few since then, in March 2024, Google's been very clear about what constitutes good quality content. And so, if we break those sort of 4 elements down, as you rightly say, I think it was expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. What that actually means in practice is making sure that the content isn't just generic and sort of, a bit mundane, as often generative AI on that first draft can produce.
Right.
You could ask ChatGPT today to write you a 2,000 word blog on X, and it will do it, and it will read beautifully, albeit it's not high quality, and that's the key thing. So making sure that you've got good experience, so genuine anecdotes from the writer. It needs to actually come from an individual with a face and a name, rather than the typical brand name that these blog posts get published. And it's got to draw on real life experiences. So that EEAT framework is something that I think is being used to combat bad SEO.
Right.
And it's something that we all have to stick to, and be meticulous about when we're producing content, whether that's through generative AI or not.
I definitely agree with you on that. And I feel like it opened up a door for small business owners who actually have great quality content to be seen even more on Google search, when all of that transpired earlier this year.
Yeah.
But for like service-based business owners who don't have like that deep experience in in SEO or AI,
Mm.
what is one thing they should be doing to like what is one thing you think they should be doing to their Google profile or their to prepare for like local SEO?
So I would say with local, probably the most important thing you can do with your business profile is make sure it is 100% complete and up to date. So your Google business profile is almost like the first place that AI platforms go to better understand your business. So making sure that you've got consistency across that platform and everything up to date, making sure that you are describing the images that you upload is really important. And I would also go so far as to say that getting your Google business profile perfect, that's step one for sure. But it's also really important to get consistency across all the other directory listings that you may not have considered. So, for example, your Bing Places listing, it's important to claim that. So many businesses don't. It's just kind of given to them, but you've actually got to claim it. So that's another important point. But in the US, I think there's around 50 directory listings that Google considers when it looks at how authoritative and consistent a business is. And it's really pedantic. So if your business is on Main Street, for example, and your Main Street on one, but Main ST, the abbreviated version, on another, that's kind of going against you. So making sure you've got total consistency in terms of name, address, and phone number, and any descriptions. You can use a tool like SEMrush, for example. We use that in my business, where you can actually just connect your Facebook page, you can connect your Google business profile, describe exactly how you want your business to be described, sort of type it all in, and then it can actually push out to these 50 different directory listings within the click of a button. So you don't need to log into each one, and it's not a long, arduous task. So certainly in terms of local, getting consistency, I would say, is the number one thing you can do.
Awesome. And I definitely agree with that because I know we do reputation management, and the software that we use that we've been using for our clients, it is connected to like over 199 listings. And
Oh,
we
wow.
make sure that it's the same across the board on all of that, because that's a big factor that a lot of people, when they start business, they may use their own home address versus getting an office space or a virtual address. And then when they start growing, they leave it at that and start using something else. So yeah, I definitely agree that that is important. So
Which
Adam,
Rickdrieka, sorry to interrupt, but there's a really important issue that arises when you've got a remote business as well. Because if you want to be listed in a Google business on your Google business profile as your remote location, very often Google will ask you to confirm by posting a video of your premises with your logo, which can be problematic, because if you're just using it as a mailing address, you've got to see, it often requires you to contact Google and explain the situation, maybe share invoices for that particular address. It's a bit of an aside, but it can be a big problem if you're wanting to get all of this stuff done quickly.
Yeah, and I know that was like a recent Google change, maybe in the past 2 or 3 years, because I know when I got started, and we transitioned during COVID to fully remote, I was able to change and update our address without doing that. But then after
Oh yeah.
COVID, I know all of my clients, they have to do like a video and all of this stuff. So that was
Yeah.
something that they definitely started doing after COVID. I guess because a lot of people were working remote and there were issues around that, that they started doing that verification process.
Yeah. It can take a while, but it's worth doing for sure.
Yeah. So Adam, what for you look at SEO basically almost day in, day out. Um, in the next 6 to 12 months, what do you think business owners should be keeping an eye on around SEO and AI? And what do you think will probably be changing even more in the next 6 to 12 months around SEO AI?
Okay, so I would suggest two things are the things that I think are going to be the big changes for the next 6 to 12 months. The first is keeping a clear understanding of what your AI shadow says about you. So this is this is AI's interpretation of your brand. A good way to think about it is to consider that it's almost like a mishmash of your unique selling points, your online reputation, and like an impartial critique, as if as if you're a restaurant and a journalist has come to eat at your restaurant and has reviewed your premises. So it's really important to track what AI is saying about you. And the reason being is that it is, I kind of used this word gatekeeper a couple of times now. I can't stress this enough, that when people traditionally have made a branded search about your business or a non-branded search about your business, a non-branded being something that describes your business, but haven't searched for you specifically by name, traditionally what they would have seen is either you as the #1 spot on Google and go onto your website to explore more, or if it's a non-branded search, they would have found your business if you ranked highly and then gone onto your website. What that model has been completely disrupted in the advent of AI search, because now when you make those searches, branded or non-branded, you start to see this AI shadow, and it typically takes the form of a 1 to 2 sentence summary that explains what your business is about. But then the customer or the user of these platforms can go that step further and say, okay, tell me more about that business, give me the pros and cons or something to that effect. And that's when it starts dishing the dirt and can pull out all of the stuff that you don't necessarily want it to do. So it's really important now to maintain your overall presence online. And what that means in practice, thinking, again, using the example of hotels, making sure that your social media page, your pages are saying exactly what you want them to say, and there's no outdated content, because it can pull out, old posts from 5 years ago and won't necessarily make the distinction that actually, oh wait, you don't have a spa anymore. So it can pull that stuff out. The second thing is making sure that your aggregator listings, so that might be booking.com or any other sort of aggregator that you use to drive business, those are fully up to date, because you exist on highly authoritative websites. Even though in hotels you won't necessarily want to drive lots of business through booking.com because of the hefty commissions, or any other online travel agent for that matter, but it's really important that you manage your entire online presence, so across the whole of the internet. So AI shadows is #1. The second I would suggest in the next 6 to 12 months is that we need to be preparing our websites for agentic website browsing, which sounds ridiculous, but here we are in this bizarre world that we find ourselves. So what that means is more and more in 2026 and going into 2027, we are going to see customers adopting their own AI agent to search on behalf of them, on their behalf, to find businesses, to find products, to find services that suits their needs based on the brief that they've been given by their customers. And so we're going to see fewer humans go, I mean, we're some way off this, but we're going to see fewer humans actually going to websites and doing the research themselves. We're going to see more agents doing that on behalf of their humans, should we say. So what we have to do, therefore, is we need to make sure that our websites are basically prepared for that agentic website browsing. So how do we do this? We can do this a number of different ways. The first thing to think about is that, where humans will skim through a website, we skim read, we just sort of flick through and we get the general gist. Agents pass through websites, not PASS, but PARSE. And it's a way of interpreting data in a way that it can sort of find the general meaning in the most efficient way possible. So getting the content structure on your website is really essential. So at a very sort of basic level, your H1 heading tags, your H2s, your
Mhm.
H3s, you would have seen those, making sure those are all absolutely firing. Recapture forms of something, has been generally considered best practice for so many years because it stops bots from, going through forms, and you get a whole load of spam. Now we need to sort of rethink that idea, because recapture forms can often stop agents from actually going through, because, by their nature, they need you to prove that you're a human. There are agent-friendly recapture forms that you can apply to your own website. So be thinking about that. And then I would say that the third point on this final point of mine is just humans are sold to by that whole sales adage of you've got to sell the benefits, not the features. You've got to sell the sizzle, not the steak. Well,
Mhm.
actually, agents are completely the other way. They
It's
don't care about how great it smells, or how beautiful and delicious the meat looks. They care about all the key features of that particular
Mhm.
product. So if we keep with this analogy, they want to know where the cow was reared. They want to know how many days it's been aged for. All of these things. They care about all of the features that it can find. So the more features that you can incorporate within your website, the better, because when that niche request is made to an agent by a customer and saying, look, this is the product I'm after, it needs to have this, all of these features are really, really important to me. It's going to scour the internet and find a business that matches all of those and has made all of those features really clear on the website. So those are my 2 points. Track your AI shadow, and make sure that your website is prepared for agentic browsing. That's what's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months, I would suggest.
I definitely agree with you 100%, especially the agentic AI searching, because I've been playing around with like creating agents, and I look at a lot of the output that comes back, and they
Mhm.
always share the features and the pricing as the output versus actually looking at the benefits of getting from point A to
Yeah.
Z. So I definitely agree with that, because we're actually in the process of updating our website for the new
Yep.
year to be more have more of our features, because originally we had more benefits, and but we did
Yep.
also still include some features, and it was like 50-50. But I told them that I want to kind of do like a 80-20 shift. I still want to have the benefits on there, but I want to be more so focused on those features. So Adam, could you tell the audience how they could get in contact with you?
Yeah, sure. So I think probably the easiest way is to go through Score Plan. So Score Plan's our digital software platform that basically kind of demystifies everything. It gives you one simple score, one simple plan on how to improve your visibility online. So if you go to scoreplan.ai, you can get a free report there. Equally, you can email me, which is adam@thisisformula.com. Be happy to have a conversation. So yeah, those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
Awesome. And I definitely think that this is very beneficial for those who are trying to leverage AI. And Adam, thank you so much for joining the show today. It was definitely incredible and insightful. And thank you also for demystifying a complex topic, because a lot of people, I guess they kind of cringe around SEO and they're fearful of SEO, because it can be very technical, but it can be very beneficial, and giving our audience a practical path to move forward for embracing SEO for 2026. And thank you to all of our listeners who are joining in for this episode of the Business Enricher Circle. Remember that in this trend or change of evolving where it comes to AI, the best strategy is to make sure that you are leveraging AI so that it is helpful, and also helping you to set yourself aside as an expert, and making sure that you are being trustworthy, so that machines are not ignoring who you are and what your business is all about. Until next time, continue to enrich yourself and your business.